We have started our discussion on the multiple choice questions in the revisionary test paper for direct tax laws, November 2020. And we have discussed 3 questions, and these were case-based studies, which the institute called it as a case-based study. So here, now question number 4th. A Limited is an Indian company, bought back its listed shares from its shareholders, and B Limited is also an Indian company, bought back its unlisted shares from its shareholders in the month of March 2020. These shares have been bought back in the month of March 2020. Now they are asking for the tax consequences of such buyback in hands of A Limited, B Limited, and the shareholders. So we have seen that now if the listed company buy back the shares, if the listed company buy back the shares and shares are bought back on or after 5th of July 2019, in that case under section 115 QA, the listed company is also liable to pay tax on distributed income to the shareholders under section 115 QA at rate of 23.296%. Earlier the same was payable only by the unlisted company. So here the additional income tax will be payable by the listed company as well as unlisted company, and since the buyback is in March 2020 and the income will be exempt in hands of shareholder. Income will be what? Exempt in hands of shareholder. Under section 1034A. So we have discussed this. So here, what will be the correct answer? First option is what? Additional income tax at rate of 23.296% on the distributed income is leviable in the hands of A Limited and B Limited, and income arising to shareholders is exempt from tax. So answer number A itself is correct. So in this option A is correct. We can read the other options also. Income arising to shareholders from buybacks is taxable in their individual hand, that is wrong. Then additional income tax 23.296% on the distributed income is leviable in hands of A Limited. Income rising to shareholders of B Limited is taxable in their individual hand. This is also wrong. And additional income tax is payable by B Limited, and income arising to the shareholders of A Limited is taxable in their individual hand. This is also wrong. So fundamentally here, whether it's a listed company or whether it's an unlisted company, both of them will be liable to pay tax on distributed income under section 115 QA at rate of 20% plus surcharge at rate of 12% plus HEC at rate of say 4%. Now next question is, Mr. Ganesh and Mr. Rajesh, resident Indians, aged 60 years and 80 years. Ganesh and Rajesh, they are resident Indians respectively. They have not furnished their returns of income for the previous year 1920. However, the total income assessable in respect of assessed in respect of such year under 144 is 8 lakhs and 5 lakhs respectively. Is penalty leviable under section 270A, and it's what's the quantum of penalty? So here, in case of Ganesh, since he has not furnished the return of income is not furnished, and the income assessed under 144 is what? 8 lakhs. Therefore, it will be a case of underreporting of income. It's a case of underreporting of income. Since the income exceeds maximum amount not chargeable to tax and he has not furnished the return. and underreported income will be rupees 5 lakhs. That is the assessed income minus the maximum amount not chargeable to tax. And we will be working out tax on the underreported income. In such case, it will be 5 lakhs plus the basic exemption limit of 3 lakhs. So we will be working out tax on such income. That works out to be on first 3 lakh, it will be nil. Next 2 lakh, it will be 5%, 10,000 rupees. And next 3 lakh, it will be 20%. That is 60,000 rupees. So tax works out to be 70,000 rupees here, plus HEC at rate of 4%, 2,800 is the HEC. So it works out to be 72,800. Penalty leviable will be 50% of the tax on the underreported income. That is 72,800 into 50%. That is 36,400. In case of Mr. Rajesh, since he is a senior citizen, very senior citizen, and the basic exemption limit is 5 lakh rupees and he has not furnished the return, penalty will not be leviable under section 270 clause is under section 270A. So therefore the answer is what? First option is no penalty leviable under 270A in hands of either of Ganesh and Rajesh. That is not wrong. Then they have calculated penalty in both the ends. That is also not wrong. They have also calculated again penalty in both the ends. And last one is what? Penalty of 36,400 is leviable in hands of Ganesh. That is correct. And no penalty is leviable in the hands of Rajesh. So answer is what? Option D. Next question is Mr. X measures X and Company and measures Y and Company. They are what? Non-resident firms. They are non-resident firms and they are in receipt of fees for technical services of rupees 20 lakhs each in previous year 1920. The X and Company, it has received fees for technical services 20 lakh rupees. As well as Y and Company, they have also received fees for technical services 20 lakh rupees. The same has been received from Indian company A Limited. A Limited is paying the same in pursuance of an agreement with A Limited, which has been approved by the central government. Measures X and Company does not have any fixed place of profession. Measures X and Company does not have any fixed place of profession. Whereas Y and Company is having what? A fixed place of profession in India, and the contract is effectively connected with such fixed place of profession. The revenue expenditure incurred by X company to earn fees for technical services is 2 lakh rupees. And the details pertaining to Y and Company is what? A revenue expenditure here is 3.5 lakhs. Expenditure incurred wholly and exclusively connected with fixed place of profession out of the above amount is 1 lakh rupees. Amount paid by fixed place of profession to HO, otherwise than towards reimbursement of the actual expenses, that is 1 lakh. Books of accounts are maintained and audit report is furnished. Now, what is the tax liability of measures X and Company and Y and Company? Now, you have seen section 100 in case non-resident does not have PE in India and is in receipt of royalty or say fees for technical services from a Indian company, and same is in pursuance of agreement which has been approved by central government, then section 115A subsection 1 clause B is what? Applicable in such a case in respect of royalty and fees for technical services, and rate of tax will be 10% increased by surcharge if applicable and HEC at rate of 4%. Now here no deduction in respect of any expenditure or allowance will be allowed. no deduction in respect of any expenditure will be allowed. So in case of this X and company, it is a NR and is receiving fees for technical services from an Indian company in pursuant to agreement. On this 20 lakh rupees, tax will be levied at rate of 10%, 10.4%. That is 10% plus 4% HEC. So the liability will be what? 20 lakhs into 10.4%. That is 2,08,000 will be the liability of X and company. Relating to what? Y and company. It is a NR having P in India. And that P is effectively connected with earning of FTS. The provisions of 44 DA will be applicable. And we have seen in section 44 DA that the income will be taxed under profits and gains of business and profession, and whatever expenditure has been incurred wholly and exclusively in connection with the place of this profession in India, the same will be deductible. Besides this, whatever reimbursement of the actual expenditure has been incurred by HO or any other office outside India, we are reimbursing the same on actual basis. That will be deductible while computing the income. And the assessee is to maintain the books of accounts and get them audited also. And the scrutiny assessment will be made under section 143.3. So in this case, it is fees for technical services, income is rupees 20 lakhs. We will be getting the deduction of expenditure which has been incurred wholly and exclusively in connection with fixed days of profession, that is 3 lakhs. Rupees 1 lakh will not be deductible, the same will not be deductible. On 17 lakhs, since a non-resident firm, the applicable tax rate will be what? 30%. So the tax liability will be 5 lakh and 10,000 rupees. And the same will be increased by HEC of 4%. That is 20,400 rupees. So the answer here works out to be how much? 5 lakh and 30,400 rupees. 530,400 rupees. So the correct option 2,08,000 and 530,400. So answer works out to be 5,30,400 and 2,08,000. So the answer is what? C in this case. Now next question is question number 7th. A Limited. It is an Indian company. It has borrowed money from BINC in country B. So A Limited has borrowed from BINC. C Limited in country C, DINC in country D, and E Limited in country E, the details of which are given as under. Now here the lender is BINC. Amount borrowed is 15 crore rupees. Interest paid is 1.5 crore rupees. Is it an associated enterprise? Yes. So here provisions of section 94B, limitation of interest will be applicable. Then C Limited, it is an associated enterprise? No, it is not an associated enterprise. Amount borrowed is 25 crore rupees and interest paid is 2.5 crore rupees. It's an independent enterprise. Then DINC, it's 25 crores and interest paid is 2.5 crores. Is it an associated enterprise? Yes, it's an associated enterprise. Now, E, 15 crore has been borrowed and 1.5 crores is the interest paid. It's also not an associated enterprise. Now what it has been provided is BINC, which is an associated enterprise of A Limited, has provided a guarantee of loan taken by A Limited from C Limited. Now BINC, it has provided guarantee. If it is providing any implicit or explicit guarantee in respect of loan which has been taken from unrelated party. Now this transaction also will be deemed to be undertaken with associated enterprise. If the associated enterprise provides explicit or implicit guarantee to another enterprise, which is an independent enterprise, lending interest to the concerned entity. This will also come under section 94B. Then DINC has deposited 15 crores with E Limited Now here DINC has deposited 15 crore. This is the amount borrowed. Equal to that, a deposit has been made. If a deposit has been made equal to the amount so borrowed, then it will be deemed to be, this transaction will also be deemed to be entered with the associated enterprise. Now as we have seen that what is the limitation of interest, whatever is the interest paid to the associated enterprise, or 30% of the earnings before depreciation, interest, tax and amortization. That will be what? Allowed as deduction, lower of the two. So here the earnings before interest, tax, depreciation of A Limited for assessment year 2021 is 10 crore rupees. So on 10 crores, the interest allowance will be what? At rate of 30%, 3 crore rupees will be allowed. Now how much amount of interest has been paid? We have paid 1.5 crores plus 2.5 crores means what? 2 and 3, 4. And for 8 crores interest has been paid. Here it's 8 crores. That is 1.5 plus 2.5 plus 2.5 plus 1.5. So they are asking for what is the X interest to be disallowed under 94B. Excess interest is how much? 8 crores minus 3 crores. 5 crores is the excess interest. So there 5 crores will be what? Disallowed. Here 5 crores will be what? Disallowed as per the provisions of section 94B. So this is a question relating to section 94B. Next question is, say, AM Limited and AN Limited, they are Indian companies which have to pay interest of rupees 2 lakhs and 1 lakh outside India to Mr. P, a non-resident, during 1920 on rupee denominated bonds which have been issued. One has been issued in January 19 and the other one has been issued in April 19 respectively. Which of the following statements are correct relating to liability of AM Limited and AN Limited to deduct tax at source? Now one exemption was provided by the Finance No. 2 Act 2019 and the same was under section 10(4)(c), which was stating that if any interest is paid to INR not being company or say foreign company, interest has been paid to them by an Indian company or a business trust. The same has been paid by an Indian company or business trust. And the period was also specified. You can go through the same, that is under section 10(4)(c). The period was, has been the same, was 17/9/2018. That has been given in page number 25.18 of our book, 17/9/2018 to 31/3/19. In non-resident taxation chapter, we have discussed the same. Now, whatever interest has been paid during this period, the interest income is exempt in hands of the recipient. Here, interest income is exempt in hands of recipient. When the interest income is exempt in hands of recipient, there will be no requirement of TDS. There will be no requirement of TDS. Otherwise, if any interest is paid on rupee denominated bonds, in that case, if same is paid to NR not being a company or to a foreign company, tax is to be deducted at source at rate of 5%. And it is to be increased by surcharge as applicable plus HEC at rate of 4%. The effective rate works out to be 5.2%. Now here, AM Limited has borrowed the amount during this phase 17/9/2018 to 31/3/2019. Therefore, it will not be required to deduct any tax at source. whereas N Limited will be required to deduct tax at source at rate of 5%. So the answer is N Limited, both M and N Limited do not have to deduct tax at source. Yeah, both M and N Limited have to deduct tax at source. That is wrong, this is wrong. M Limited does not have to deduct tax at source. M Limited has been borrowing, and the borrowing is in January 19. Well, yes, M Limited does not have to deduct tax at source, but N Limited has to deduct tax at source. So this is correct answer. C is correct answer. You can refer section 10(4)(c) for this particular question. Exemption has been provided in this regard. Therefore, since the income is exempt in the hands of the recipient, there will be no requirement of what? Tax reduction at source by the payer. Now, question number 9th is, under which of the following cases will the arm's length price be determined by considering median of the data set? We have seen range concept. While discussing the transfer pricing provisions, we have discussed the concept of range. And we have seen that in case of comparable uncontrolled price method, this range concept is not applicable. And in case of this resale price method, transactional net margin method, and cost plus method, the same is applicable if the number of entries in data set is what? 6 or more. Then only the same is applicable. If number of the values in data set is less than 6, it is not applicable. Now, here, if the arm's length price falls within the 35th percentile and 65th percentile, then the ALP is accepted. Whatever transaction price is there, the same is accepted if the arm's length price falls within that. But here, where the transaction price falls within what? This 35th to 65th percentile. In that case, that is accepted. Otherwise, what? We have to take the median. So, in this particular case, here, C cup method, same is not applicable. In resale price method, number of values in data set is 6. In T and MM, it is 7. And it is in cost plus it is 8. So here in these cases, in 3 cases, the concept of range will be applicable. Now here they say that does the price at which the transaction is undertaken falls within the arm's length price beginning from 35th percentile of the data set and ending with the 65th percentile. So in case here, if the transaction is falling within this, then we will be taking whatever price has been entered with our associated enterprise, we will be taking the same. So, yes, it is falling within 35th to 65th percentile in RPM, as well as in transactional net margin method is falling. But the same is not falling within what? In case of cost plus method. So here, in which case median of data set will be used? Median of data set will be used only in case of cost plus method, and cost plus method is case 4. The answer will be here only in case 4. So here, case 4, you will be using what? In cost plus method, you will be using the concept of median, because the price at which the transaction has been undertaken, it is not falling within what? The range. It is outside the range of 35th to 65th percentile. Now, question number 10th is, Mr. Akash has made the following cash withdrawals during the financial year 1920. Now, they have provided the information relating to what? Cash withdrawals which have been made by Mr. Akash. In this case, on 1/6/2019, 70 lakhs have been withdrawn from Bank of India. Then on 1/7/19, from Standard Chartered Bank, 45 lakhs have been withdrawn. Then here, from Bank of India, 50 lakhs have been withdrawn. Then on 1/9/19, 15 lakh has been withdrawn from SCB. Then 1/10/90, Repco Bank. Then it is SBI. Then it is Repco Bank. Then again SCB, Repco, SBI, SCB and SBI. What are the above, which of the above payers they are required to deduct tax at source on cash withdrawals made by Mr. Akash in 2019, 2020. So 1920 they are asking for what? This. So here we have seen section 194N. Same has been introduced by Finance Act number 2 Act 2019, and it has been inserted with effect from say 1st of September 2019. If we are withdrawing an amount exceeding rupees 1 crore, we are withdrawing an amount exceeding rupees 1 crore, tax will be deducted at source at rate of 2% in excess of rupees 1 crore. That has been introduced by the Finance number 2 Act 2019. Now look how much amount has been withdrawn. Say if the amount has been withdrawn prior to 1st of September 2019, on that amount tax would not have been deducted at source. But subsequently further withdrawal take place, then in aggregate we will find out whether the amount is in excess of 1 crore or not. Aggregation will be made for the entire financial year, and then there will be liability for deduction of tax at source on the amount which has been withdrawn subsequently. Now here, relating to Bank of India, BOI, we have withdrawn on 1/6/2019. Then we have withdrawn on 1st of August 2019. The amounts of withdrawn is 70 lakhs here, and then it is 50 lakhs. But the same has been withdrawn prior to 1/9/2019. Subsequently, we can see whether any amount has been withdrawn from Bank of India. No information has been there about the withdrawal. So here there will be no TDS liability. Bank is not required to deduct tax at source under section 194N because the withdrawals have taken place prior to 1st of September 2019. Then we come to SCB. Second one is Standard Chartered Bank. Same 45 lakhs have been withdrawn here. It will be aggregated. 15 lakhs have been withdrawn. Then 15 lakhs again. Then 15 lakhs again. Then 15 lakhs again. So here how much has been withdrawn? 15 from this, 15, 30, 15, 45. Okay. Then 15, 45 plus 15, 60, and 45 is again. So total withdrawal is 105. 45 plus 60, that is 105 lakhs. So since it exceeds rupees 1 crore, SCB will be required to deduct tax at source at rate of 2% in excess of 1 crore rupees. So SCB is liable. Then our next bank is Cooperative Bank. Cooperative banks are also required here. 60 lakhs. Then 10 lakhs. Then 20 and 15. So 60, 70, 20, 90 and 15, 105 lakhs. So here this Repco Bank will also be required for TDS to deduct tax at source under section 194N because the payments, cash payments exceed rupees what? 1 crore. Then we have SBI. SBI is, it is 10 lakhs. Then we have 75 lakhs and 15 lakhs. So it is 100 lakhs. here since payment does not exceed rupees 1 crore, SBI is not required to deduct tax at source. So SBI here is not required to deduct tax at source. So SCB will be required to deduct tax at source, and REPCO will be required to what? Deduct tax at source. SCB, Standard Chartered Bank, and REPCO Bank. In this case, they will be required to deduct what? Tax at source. SCB and the REPCO Bank. So here the correct answer is SCB and REPCO. D is the correct answer. Now next question is, which of the following orders they are not appealable before Commissioner Appeals? An order of penalty, the same is appealable under section 271B for failure to get the accounts audited. They are appealable before Commissioner Appeals. An order made under 163 treating as assessee as an agent of NR, that is also appealable. Then an order of assessment passed by the AO in pursuance of directions of DRP. Since DRP is a collegium of 3 commissioners, therefore here the order is appealable before ITAT. It is appealable before ITAT and not before Commissioner Appeals. So this order is not appealable. An order under section 201 deeming a person to be an assessee in default. So answer here will be what? C. In this case will be C. If a person treating assessee in default under section 201 for non-reduction of tax at source, the same is appealable before the Commissioner Appeals. The next question is, which of the following statements are correct in relation to power of income tax authority to collect information? This is a power of what? The income tax authority to collect information which may be useful for the purpose of the Income Tax Act 1961. They are asking for what? The powers of the income tax authority to collect the information. So that is basically going for 133B. There is door-to-door survey. They are going on to take out prescribed information. Now here, the income tax authority can enter under 133B. They are asking whether income tax authority can enter the place of business only after sunrise but before sunset. It has not been provided there. They can enter only when the place is open for the conduct of business or profession. So the income tax authority may enter the place of business only during the hours at which the place is open for the conduct of business. This is correct. Then income tax authority may impound and retain in its custody for a period not exceeding 15 days books of accounts. So here they cannot impound. They cannot take anything. They cannot take and retain in the custody any books of accounts under 133B. The income tax authority, basically they cannot remove or cause to be removed from the building or place where he has entered any books of accounts and other documents. So this is correct. Fourth one is correct and second one is correct. So the answer will be D in this case. So these are the objective questions which we have discussed, and basically you must be aware, fully aware with the legal provisions. You should be aware with the legal provisions, and more practice you make of these multiple choice questions, then you can easily understand the things. So fundamentally you have to practice those questions by hand, and we have given 2000 multiple choice questions in our portal. Like these questions have been incorporated. They are a bit difficult, but the thing is, when you attempt those, it gives entire revision of the particular chapter. So if you are dealing with the income tax authority, it will give you what? Revision of that particular chapter. So section wise these questions have been framed, and they are available at our MCQ portal, and you can attempt those questions and view your result. Basic thing is that you can again and again view those answers in case if you want to say have a more clarity. Each and every question has been given with the suggested answer. It's not just answer hints. Why the reason? What is the reasoning behind the same? It has been provided. So this was our discussion about the revisionary test paper November 20, which has been given by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India.